stráždущих, plynených i o spasených, Hospodu čistiu, preblahoslavenú, slávnu Vladičicu našu, Bohorodicu i prísnu Divu Mariu, so všemi sviatými ponianúši sami sebe i druh druha, i veš život náš, Kristu Bohu predadím. Jako podobaje tedy всяка слава, честь и поклонение Отцу и Сыну и Святому Духу, ныне присно и во веки веков.
Amen. Shout joyfully to the Lord of the earth. Sing praise to His name. Give to Him glory in His praise. Through the prayers of the Theotokos, O Savior, save us. Glory to the Father, to the Son, and to the Holy
now and ever and forever.
Holy God, holy and mighty, holy and immortal, have mercy on us. Holy God, holy and mighty, holy and immortal, have mercy on us. Holy God, holy and mighty, holy and immortal, have mercy on us. Glory to the Father and to the Son and to the Holy Spirit, now and ever and forever. Amen. Holy and immortal, have mercy on us. Holy God, holy and mighty, holy and immortal, have mercy on us.
Let us be attentive. Peace be to all. Wisdom be attentive.
Your praise shall be clothed with holiness. Your faithful shall read their joy.
Hear this, all you peoples. Give heed, all who dwell in the world.
Your praise shall be clothed with holiness. Your faithful shall read their joy.
Wisdom.
A reading from the Acts of the Holy Apostles.
Let us be attentive.
In those days, after Peter had been miraculously freed from prison, he went to the house of Mary, the mother of John, also known as Mark, where many others were gathered in prayer. Peter knocked at the door, and a maid named Rhoda came to answer it. On recognizing his voice, she was so overjoyed that she did not stop to open the door, but ran in and announced that Peter was outside. "You're out of your wits," they said to her, but she insisted it was true. All they could say was, "It must be his angel." Through all this, Peter kept on knocking. They finally opened the door and were astonished to see him. He motioned to them to be quiet and explained how the Lord had brought him out of prison. "Report this to James and the brothers," he said, then left them to go off to another place.
Peace be to your ear, Ryan. Wisdom be attentive.
Your your priests will be clothed with righteousness, and your saints will rejoice. The Lord has chosen Zion. He prefers her for his dwelling.
Wisdom, let us stand and listen to the Holy Gospel. Peace be to all.
And to your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. John.
Glory to you, O Lord. Glory to you.
Let us be attentive. The Lord said, I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be safe. He will go in and out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and slaughter and destroy. I came that they might have life and have it to the full. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand, who is no shepherd nor owner of the sheep, catches sight of the wolf coming and runs away, leaving the sheep to be snatched and scattered by the wolf. That is because he works for pay. He has no concern for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me, in the same way that the Father knows me, and I know the Father. For these sheep I will give my life. I have other sheep that do not belong to this fold. I must lead them too, and they shall hear my voice. There shall be one flock then, and one shepherd.
Glory to you, Lord. Glory to you. Christ is risen from the dead. By death he trampled death, and to those immortals he granted life.
Christ is risen.
Indeed, he is risen.
Christos voskreσε.
Voisinul voskreσε.
Christos anesti.
Alithos anesti.
This evening we gather together and we're celebrating this liturgy because it is indeed, it's a special feast day. And special feast day in a couple of ways actually, because today we also remember the dedication of the city of Constantinople, which took place on this day, May 11, some 1,690 years ago. And so that city, of course, is also very special to our church as the Byzantine Catholic Church. But more specifically, today we celebrate the feast of Saint Constantine Cyril and Saint Methodius. These two saints are very important for us because through their mission, their missionary efforts, Christianity came to the Slavic peoples. And all the Slavic peoples, whether Byzantine or Roman Catholic or Orthodox, all the Slavic peoples have a debt, a great debt, to their mission. And so I'd like to share with you a little bit about them so that we know them. They are our special patron saints. They appear in the iconostas right behind the tomb in our parish. Our seminary in Pittsburgh is dedicated to their memory. And so it is only right and appropriate that we know them, because our faith is planted by them, by their hands. And Constantine, or Cyril, Constantine was his birth name. Cyril he took as a monastic when he became a monk, was born in the city of Thessaloniki in Macedonia, northern Greece, as was his brother Methodius. They were two brothers out of a family of 8 brothers. His parents were very devout. His mother, Maria, may have been of Slavic background, but nonetheless they grew up under her very careful and special care, all 8 of these brothers. Their father, Leo, was a very important official within the Byzantine Empire. He had a government position that, of course, to him brought comfort for him and his family, but it also meant that he was well known, well respected, and had what we would call today connections. Leo died when Constantine was only 14 years old. Constantine was the youngest of the 8. And a friend of his father, of Leo's, took the entire family under his protection. And this friend was one of the chief ministers of the Byzantine Empire. And that afforded young Constantine an opportunity to be educated at some of the finest institutions, including one of the first universities founded in the Byzantine Empire, where later Constantine would also be a professor. Constantine was at some point ordained to the priesthood. We don't know exactly when. And his older brother Methodius was a deacon. Methodius, whose actual birth name is Michael, Methodius had joined a monastery. He had entered into one of the famous monasteries on Mount Olympos in west of the city of Constantinople. Methodius was a very intelligent, but he was more of a diplomat. And so he found himself and his talents, even as a monastic, being used within diplomacy of the Byzantine Empire. Meanwhile, young Constantine, found himself in the court of the Byzantine Emperor Michael III and Patriarch Photius. Cyril, or Constantine, was at that point one of the librarians of the Byzantine Emperor, and he was also a professor at the university. It was around the year 860 that the Emperor Michael decided to send Cyril, a young priest, send him among the Khazar people living in and around the Crimean Peninsula. He sent them to the Khazars so that Cyril would be able to establish the Christian faith among them. At this time, Cyril, not being necessarily well prepared, accepted the mission task and went to the Khazars and was quite successful. It was this mission that introduced him to an apostolic ministry that was not a part of his earlier background. In the year 862, Prince Rastislav, the king of the great Moravian Empire, or kingdom rather, requested of Michael III and of Patriarch Photius missionaries to come to his kingdom, to evangelize his people in the spoken language. The Emperor Michael chose Cyril, and Cyril indulged the emperor to also send his brother, Methodius. And so the two brothers went to Great Moravia, where they began their mission in the year 863. They already had begun the task of translating the gospel into the Slavic language. What we know today as Old Slavonic at that time was just Slavonic. And they began this task even before arriving among the Moravians, because probably both Constantine as well as his brother knew and were familiar with the Slavic tongue. It was one of the tongues spoken commonly in the city of Thessaloniki. Because of this knowledge, they had an advantage, and when they came as two Greeks, came into this kingdom of Slavic people, being able to communicate with the people they came to evangelize was very important. And they began to translate not only the scriptures, not only the Old Testament, but also documents about government and law, and of course, theological treatises and the writings of the fathers, and most especially the divine liturgy, and also the Roman canon of the Mass. They found in this kingdom already a limited and small presence of Christians who were Slavic and had been evangelized by Germanic missionaries. And so for them, they translated the Roman Mass into the Slavic language, into Slavonic. Their work, though, was not well received by the neighboring rulers, and especially by neighboring bishops. In the countries and kingdoms around Greater Moravia, there were bishops and archbishops who had already staked a claim of the pagan Great Moravian kingdom. And so they believed that this territory was theirs. And so they fought against the mission of Constantine and Methodius. This caused the two brothers to pick up their books and their translations and come to the city of Rome, where they would present their work, their translations to the Pope. And Pope Nicholas invited them to come to Rome for this very purpose. However, by the time they arrived in Rome, a new pope had already been elected, and Pope Nicholas had died. And this new pope, Hadrian II, welcomed them, and he heard their case, and he blessed their efforts. They also, at the same time, they brought with them the relics of Pope Saint Clement, the third pope. And so they were received by the faithful of the city of Rome with great pomp and circumstance, as they were bringing the relics of one of the sons of Rome back home. Pope Hadrian not only blessed their liturgy, but he also ordained Methodius to the priesthood, because Methodius had only been a deacon up until that time. Then the same pope also ordained 3 Slavic men who had come with them to the priesthood, and 2 other young men to the diaconate. And in their stay in Rome, Methodius was eventually ordained a bishop, and he was made the archbishop of the entire mission of Great Moravia and also the neighboring region of Pannonia, which is today modern Hungary and northern Serbia. With this blessing, Methodius was able to return back among the people he had initially evangelized. Unfortunately for Constantine, when they were in Rome, fell ill, and realizing that his end was near, he entered a Greek monastery where he fell asleep in the Lord. And it is said that the entire population of the city of Rome came and wept and lamented at his funeral. The two brothers were very well loved in Rome, even though they were Greek, even though they represented Constantinople, even though there were tensions at that time between the Byzantine Empire and the Roman papacy. Methodius returned alone, without his brother, to the mission among the Moravians. And there he continued to build the church. Unfortunately, the bishops of neighboring kingdoms continued to meddle, and they continued to try to bring down, and not only that, destroy his mission and even destroy the kingdom of Great Moravia. Their efforts did succeed in swaying the later popes against the mission of Methodius. It even led to Methodius' arrest and imprisonment in what is today Germany for a period of 2.5 years. But Methodius again pled his case to the Pope, and this was Pope Stephen, who was not that friendly to the Greeks, not that friendly to the Moravian mission. And Pope Stephen permitted Methodius to be reinstated as the archbishop, and he told him to no longer use the Slavonic language among the people. St. Methodius, it seems, did not heed that. And he returned to his people, and he continued to teach them in the Slavonic language. And eventually, word did get back to Rome. However, the Pope at that time, the same Pope, had already changed his mind about the matter. And so Slavonic was permitted to be used. Now, Slavonic was not some fancy poetic language that was obscure, that somehow was very elevated and lofty. Indeed, the content of what was written in the language was lofty and theological and even divine. But the Slavonic language was the language spoken by the people. It was the language that people used in the marketplace, in their homes. It was the language that everyone understood. It was the language of their faith. And their efforts, Cyril and Methodius, after Methodius' death, after the destruction of the kingdom of Great Moravia, their legacy was slowly being wiped away by the neighboring kingdoms and bishops and dioceses, those who were hostile to the mission among the Slavs. And yet, Methodius and Cyril, their legacy continued. They had given to this Slavic people of Moravia a tongue that was now written. what had been written could not be erased. And these writings were taken then to other nations where they were used in their conversion to the Christian faith. Methodius himself baptized the wife of the ruler of the Bohemian kingdom next door, Saint Ludmilla, whose grandson is Saint Wenceslaus, whom we know from the Christmas carol. Their impact goes beyond just their neighboring kingdoms. Those three priests who were ordained by the Pope to the priesthood eventually became bishops. They found themselves kicked out of their own country, and they went to Macedonia and Bulgaria and brought with them the writings, the translations. They brought with them every tool that they had so that these Slavic peoples would also hear the good news, that they would also receive the faith through the teachings of Cyril and Methodius. These two brothers, their impact, their dedication to this mission among the Slavs has established Christianity within the Slavic world and has impacted every Slavic nation. And today their example impacts also us. We who, as the Byzantine Catholic Church, we have inherited their legacy. After all, we are descended from that church that was founded by them among the Moravians. That area of Central Europe, even though it was battered, even though the faith suffered, even though many, even bishops, even authorities within the church, turned against the mission of Cyril and Methodius, their faith, their legacy survived. And that is our connection to these two brothers. A connection that cannot be denied, a connection that we are proud of, because they brought us the faith. Two Greeks, two brothers, brought us faith in Jesus Christ. They planted the seed, and the seed has grown despite the difficulties. The seed has blossomed. And today, their faith, their seed, grows beyond the Slavic nations, grows among other communities in the United States, beyond what is Slavic areas historically. And their faith is continually transmitted, passed on, shared. And so they are important for us because they do show us what the seed of faith can do. They could have given up. They suffered a lot for what they did, unfortunately, even at the hands of their fellow priests and bishops. And yet they knew what they were doing and what they were planting was of greater value. And they suffered so that the message would be planted, and so that the teaching of Christ would be known, and so that the people who would receive it would no longer sit in darkness. And so we celebrate them. Indeed, they appear, their feasts appear on our church calendar 4 times in the liturgical year, because their example is our example. What they did to establish the church, we do today to establish the faith, to share the faith, to preach the faith, to teach the faith. And their legacy is in each one of our hands. They are our fathers in the faith. They are our ancestors. They are the ones who accompany us as we take our faith into the world. So as we gather together this evening celebrating their legacy, their faith, their lives, their witness, as we consider the difficulties they overcame, the sufferings that they endured, we look to them for inspiration and guidance as we continue to share our faith in Jesus Christ. Christ is risen.
Indeed, he is risen.
Christos voskreσε.
Christos voskreσε.
Christos anesti.
Hallelujah.
Let us all say with our whole soul and with our whole mind, let us say,
Lord, have mercy.
O Lord Almighty God of our fathers, we pray you hear and have mercy.
Lord, have mercy.
Have mercy on us, O God, according to your great mercy, we pray you hear and have mercy.
Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy.
Again we pray for our Holy Father Francis, the Pope of Rome, for our most reverend Archbishop and Metropolitan William, for those who serve and have served in this holy church, for our spiritual fathers, and for all our brothers and sisters in Christ.
Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy.
Again we pray for our government and for all in the service of our country.
Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy.
Again we pray for the people here present who await your great and abundant mercy, for those who show us mercy, and for all Christians of the true faith.
Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy.
For you are a merciful, loving God, and we give glory to you, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, now and ever and forever.
Amen. Let us earnestly represent
who are now under intention. May the Lord God remember his kingdom. All those who are sick and suffering at this time, caused by the virus, may the Lord God remember his kingdom. All the suffering Christians throughout the world, suffering for their faith in Jesus Christ. Pandum tunexevon και ορθοδόξων χριστιανών, νηστiti Kyrie ο Θεός ημών εν τη βασιλεία του, πάντοτε νυν και αεί, και εις τους αιώνας των αιώνων.
Through all things.
all of you.
And with your spirit.
Let us lift up our hearts.
We lift them up to the Lord.
Let us give thanks to the Lord.
It is proper and just.
It is proper and just to sing to you, to bless you, to praise you, to thank you, to worship you in every place of your dominion. For you are God, ineffable, inconceivable, invisible, incomprehensible, ever existing, yet ever the same. You and your only begotten Son and your Holy Spirit. You brought us out of non-existence into being, and again raised us up when we had fallen, and left nothing undone until you brought us to heaven, and gave us your kingdom to come. For all this we thank you and your only begotten Son and your Holy Spirit, for all that we know that we do not know, for the manifest and hidden benefits bestowed on us. We also thank you for this liturgy which you are pleased to accept from our hands, even though there stand before you thousands of archangels, tens of thousands of angels, cherubim and seraphim, 6 winged many-eyed, soaring aloft on their wings, singing, shouting, crying aloud, and saying the triumphal hymn.
Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. Heaven and earth are filled with your glory. Hosanna in the highest. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest.
We also cry unto these blessed powers, O loving and kind Master, and say, Holy are you and all holy, you and your only begotten Son and your Holy Spirit. Holy are you and all holy, and magnificent is your glory. You so loved your world that you gave your only begotten Son, so that everyone who believes in him should not perish but have life everlasting. He came and fulfilled the whole divine plan in our behalf. On the night he was betrayed, or rather when he surrendered himself for the life of the world, he took bread into his holy and offered and immaculate hands, gave thanks and blessed, sanctified, broke, and gave it to his holy disciples and apostles, saying, Take, eat, this is my body, which is broken for you, for the remission of sins.
Amen.
Likewise he took the chalice after supper, saying, Drink of this, all of you. This is my blood of the new covenant, which is shed for you and for many, for the remission of sins.
Amen.
Remembering therefore this saving command and all that has come to pass in our behalf, the cross, the tomb, the resurrection on the third day, the ascension into heaven, the sitting at the right hand, and the second coming in glory, offering you your own from your own, always and everywhere.
We praise you, we bless you, we thank you, O Lord, and we pray to you, O Lord, and we pray to you, O Lord.
Moreover, we offer to the spiritual and bloody sacrifice, and we implore, pray, and entreat you. Send down your Holy Spirit upon us and upon these gifts lying here before us, and make this bread the precious body of your Christ,
Amen.
and that which is in this chalice the precious blood of your Christ,
Amen.
changing them by the communion of your Holy Spirit, the fullness of the heavenly kingdom, and confidence in you, not judgment or condemnation. Moreover, we offer you the spiritual sacrifice for those departed in faith, the forefathers, fathers, patriarchs, prophets, apostles, preachers, teachers, evangelists, martyrs, confessors, ascetics, and for every just spirit brought to perfection in faith. We offer you the spiritual sacrifice, especially for our most holy, most pure, most blessed, and glorious Lady, the Theotokos and ever Virgin Mary. Preserve them for your holy churches in peace, safety, honor, and health for many years, as they faithfully impart the word of your truth.
Remember all your people.
And grant that with one voice and one heart we may glorify and praise your most honored and magnificent name, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, now and ever and forever. Christ be with all of you.
And with your spirit.
Now that we have commemorated all the saints again and again in peace, let us pray to the Lord.
Lord, have mercy.
For the precious gifts offered and consecrated, that our God who loves us all may receive them on his holy, heavenly, and mystical altar, as an aroma of spiritual fragrance, and send down upon us in return his divine grace and the gift of the Holy Spirit. Let us pray.
Lord, have mercy.
And speak for unity in the faith and for communion of the Holy Spirit, let us commit ourselves and one another and our own life to Christ our God.
To you, O Lord.
To you, O Master, love us all, we commit our whole life and hope, and we implore, pray, and entreat you, make us worthy to partake of the clear conscience of your heavenly and awesome mysteries from this sacred and spiritual table. May they bring about the remission of sins, the pardon of transgressions, the communion of the Holy Spirit, the inheritance of the kingdom of heaven, confidence in you, not judgment or condemnation, and make us worthy, O Master, that we may with confidence and without condemnation dare call you Father, God of heaven, and say,
Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
for thine the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, now and ever and forever.
Amen.
Peace be to all.
And to your spirit.
Bow your heads to the Lord.
To you, O Lord.
We give you thanks, O merciful King, for by your immeasurable power you have fashioned all things, and in the greatness of your mercy you have brought all things out of non-existence into being. Look down from heaven, O Master, upon those who bow their heads to you, for they do not bow to flesh and blood, but to you, the awesome God. Therefore, O Master, make smooth for the good of all the path that lies ahead according to the need of each. Sail with those who sail, travel with those who travel. Hear those who are sick, O physician of souls and bodies. Through the grace, the mercies, and the loving kindness of your only begotten Son, with whom you are blessed, together with your all-holy, good, and life-creating Spirit, now and ever and forever. Let us be attentive. Holy gifts to holy people.
One is holy, one is Lord Jesus Christ, to the glory of God the Father. Amen. O Lord, I believe and profess that you are truly Christ, the Son of the living God, who came into the world to save sinners, of whom I am the first. Accept me today as a partaker of your mystical supper, O Son of God. For I will not reveal your mystery to your enemies, nor will I give you a kiss as to Judas, but like a thief I profess you. Remember me, O Lord, when you come in your kingdom. Remember me, O Master, when you come in your kingdom. Remember me, O Holy One, when you come in your kingdom. May the partaking of your holy mysteries, O Lord, be not for my judgment or condemnation, but for the healing of soul and body. O Lord, I also believe and profess that this which I am about to receive is truly your most precious body and your life-giving blood, which I pray may be worthy to receive for the remission of all my sins and for life everlasting. Amen. God, O God, be merciful to me, a sinner. O God, cleanse me of my sins and have mercy on me. O Lord, forgive me, for I have sinned without number. The just man will be remembered forever. Even as he will not fear, even as he will not fear. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia.
So strachom Božím vyzovíruju přistupíte.
Christ is risen from the dead. By death he trampled death, and to those in their tombs he granted life. Praise the Lord from the heavens. Praise
Let us worthily thank the Lord.
Lord, have mercy.
For you are our sanctification. We give glory to you, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, now and ever and forever.
Amen.
Let us go forth in peace.
In the name of the Lord.
Let us pray to the Lord.
Lord, have mercy.
O Lord Christ our God, you are the Word, the Son, and the Lamb of God. You are the High Priest without sin and the unblemished Lamb. In your great goodness you have called and accepted bishops, and have adorned your church with various ranks. You have redeemed your church by your precious blood, and have given us the joy of celebrating the eternal memory of your venerable spiritual fathers and bishops. They have taught and enlightened us, rightly explaining the word of your truth, as you guided them to the harbor of your will. You have worthily glorified those who glorify you. Make us worthy of their prayers and supplications, especially today, as we honor our holy fathers and equals to the apostles, Cyril and Methodius, who have taught us and enlightened us by their holy and innocent life, that we might serve you in fear, and that together with our holy spiritual fathers and bishops, we might experience your favor and your love for all humanity. For you are the provider and giver of everlasting good gifts, and all glory, honor, and power is to you, now and ever and forever.
Amen. Christ is risen from the dead. By death he trampled death, and to those in the tombs he granted life. Christos vos cresceis smecti os sepulchra, Iisus in borovi, život daroval. Christ is risen from the dead. By death he trampled death, and to those in the tombs he granted life.
The blessing of the Lord be upon you through his grace and loving kindness, always, now and ever and forever.
Amen.
Glory to you, O Christ, God, our hope. Glory to you.
Christ is risen from the dead. By death he trampled death, and to those in the tombs he granted life. Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy. Give the blessing.
May Christ, our true God, risen from the dead, by death trampling death and granting life to those in the tombs, have mercy on us and save us, through the prayers of his most pure mother, and of our holy Father John Chrysostom, Patriarch of Constantinople, patron protector of this holy temple, and of our holy Father among the saints, Nicholas, Archbishop of Myra, and Lycia the wonder worker, and through the intercession of our holy fathers and equals to the apostles, Cyril and Methodius, whom we remember this day, and through the prayers of all the saints, for Christ is good, and he loves us all.
Amen.
Christ is risen.
Indeed he is risen.
Christos voskresce.
Voskino voskresce.
Christos anesti.
Christos anesti.
Christ is